RaMell Ross. Step into the light.
Can I welcome up Joslyn as
Yes,
well?
you can, as your
Support.
creative producer,
Yeah.
yes.
Hey Joss, can you come up? Yeah, this is the creative producer and lead producer of the film. We also had Sue Kim as a producer on the film, Maya Krinsky as a co-writer, and the core editing team was Joslyn, myself, Rob Moss, and Maya Krinsky, FYI.
So, RaMell, I should just say my name's Tabitha Jackson, barely remembered it, the director of the documentary film program at Sundance. We were delighted to support you and this team and this work. So I have a couple of questions for you, and then I want to open it up to the room. My first question is about something Caroline said at the beginning about aesthetic, a new aesthetic. And I love the way you open the film and talk about the discovering. We think of you as noticing things, with looking through your eyes. We see things like the tear motif, the repetition of that. But how do you think about an aesthetic? What is an aesthetic for you?
Well, for me, kind of growing up and like looking at like reading Shel Silverstein and being like, whoa, this is like amazing. Like I'm obviously like really young. This isn't like in my teens. Reading Shel Silverstein and then like, you know, thinking about what the poems meant if I were to color the characters in dark or black. It changes the entire context of the poem. You know, this guy that's like Poverty John, that's like a funny dude, that's like doing whatever. If you color him in black, then you're like, oh my God, like what are they depicting? And so it's strange to think about blackness or the African American experience, actually just more blackness as actual content. The aesthetic is sort of built on being pointed towards and not representing ourselves in a way. And so there's just the entire range, the entire history of what it is to be black is just based on colonialism. I mean, even like photography to capture, like it's all sort of built in the way of looking. And so that was one of my original sort of understandings of aesthetics. It's just the duality of it, the plurality of the truth.
And that's why the archival clip that you use so powerfully of Bert Williams, the guy peeking through the bushes, just reminds us what we're looking at, and we're looking at a history of representation.
Exactly, yeah, he was a amazing Caribbean African performer who was in blackface, but you know, he was conscious of the stereotypes that went along with that, and was a unique one in that he was sort of using the performativity of blackface to sort of separate the performance from the person, in order to show that, you know, there's not a one-to-one relationship between the person on screen in blackface and to a person in real life. But yeah, so he draws a line from the origin of representation in cinema and in photography. Photography is 100 years earlier, but in cinema to sort of modern day.
My second question, then I'm going to come to the audience, is about your film invited me to reflect on time. One of your questions in there is about time, but also the way that some of the footage, some of the imagery is speeded up, the way that you use such patience in your looking. I just wondered how you were thinking about time in this film.
Well, you know, I don't know, at some point I came to the realization that, like, you know, we're at the forefront of history at every second, you know? And we're making history now, we're like speaking history, we're being documented. And then you realize that as it relates to society, that like time is just literally squished together. Like, you know, what this guy's wearing is a representation of the trajectory of all fashion, you know? He's potentially, I mean, I love the hat, potentially at the peak of it. And so that's only one way that time is sort of represented in the film, but I also let Joss talk about time. Joss is a really good time guru.
It's a good question. I mean, there's the durational aspect of looking, you know, and also the way that RaMell invites us, I think, to look. I always feel like, you know, film really needs to be included in political and social memory and not be used as a vehicle to encourage the atrophy of memory. And that as artists, it's our responsibility to change the rules of engagement. And I feel like he's done this with this film. And it's partly the kind of experience of the elasticity of time when you watch the film. Some people have remarked to me about that during watching the film. People have felt it's shorter or longer, or that there are longer shots than there actually are. And I love that, because it says to me that it's creating enough room to give you back what we've all been robbed of, which is our time to reflect. And I feel like that's one of the most important things, is to move from passive reception to active reflection.
Okay, so you can tell how smart these cats are. I'm going to come to you now. I wonder if we can take the house lights up a bit. Who has a question? I'm gonna run up with a microphone inelegantly up these stairs. Keep your hand up so I can see where you go. Yes, okay.
Thank you. My question was just about the significance and importance of archiving everyday Black life, specifically on film or in photography. If you can speak to a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's there's like 3 ways. I teach photography, so we think a lot about the conceptual underpinnings of product or just general image production. But there's like a documentary, and then there's like to document, and then there's a document, and they're all sort of different. They all like work in different ways. But in terms of documenting the Black community, more important to me than documenting it is having people on the inside of those communities documented. And that's not to say that people shouldn't document communities from the outside, because that's wildly important as well. But the way in which like every image we make is in dialogue with every image that came before it, and every image that's sort of in the world. And so if you look at the way the music videos, if you just look at Black imagery, like it goes from profile shots that were phrenology, then it goes to pictures of people on the plantation, and profile shots for prison and jail that were typically not taken with such a rough sort of reductive flatness with people that were white. And then it like moves into maybe Black exploitation films. Like it's just not real. Like it literally is not real. And that's the only thing that we know about Black imagery, literally. Like Black cameras have not been in the hands of people from the communities ever, just because it costs so much. And so now that's possible with phones and whatnot. And so to document the experiences needs to be from someone who has a relationship to the person that a family member would. That, like look at one like you would look at one's son or one's daughter or one's brother or one's mother, not as someone who you're sort of interested in, because when you're interested in someone, then you're looking for markers that fulfill your expectations. Additionally, you're just looking for grand conclusions that come in like absolutes, But my sister is like a complex person that I can, I don't have these big things for, aside from the fights that we got in when we were small.
Another question, yes.
Hi, just wondering how you approached your position as a spectator, just sort of continuing with your last answer, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would wholeheartedly reject the spectator language. I consider myself an active participant. Also, I think that I'm like serving the community, I think that my relationship to the community is one of nonprofit service. It is one of looking at it as my home. I have a relationship to the South. My dad is from Charlotte, North Carolina. I grew up hearing all of the awful, even the other day, we went back and were drinking whiskey, and he was telling me how many times people tried to kill him, And so there's no spectatorship, there's no sort of entertainment fanciness in the imagery, and it's more trying to understand the way that I look and understand what it looks like to look out from a population of people that has never been able to represent their looking out.
More questions? Yes.
Thank you so much. It was so beautiful. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the questions and how you developed them, and are they your voice? Are they others' voices? Thank you.
So I like to write, and I would consider myself an armchair philosopher. And so a lot of the questions were just things that I think about while being in the place and sort of watching things unfold and watching, the sort of the absence of, care for the historic South. And I guess more fundamentally, it was also a way to ground the viewer. When we were working on cuts of the film, the imagery is pretty rich, and it's associatively edited, and it could be difficult perhaps for someone to have a little bit of respite, just a little bit of a break to just look up or something. And so those were things that I was specifically interested in. What is the orbit of our dreaming? Our dreaming is trapped in the American imagination in most cases. It's trapped in our own personal imaginations. And the way that Quincy and Daniel think is tragically contained by the resources of the region and the role models that they have. And so to think about those questions while pondering the imagery, I think allowed the imagery to just come out a little bit with some of the stuff I was thinking when I was filming without,
Okay, we're going to take one more question. Ooh, there's it's like air traffic control at the back. Okay, running up. This is just to torture me, isn't it? Okay, here we go.
First of all, congratulations. I thought it was a beautiful film. I was curious about the filming process. Everyone on screen seems so naturalistic and at ease. And normally when you choose a camera, there's a reaction and maybe a performative aspect. So I'm curious, did you experience that, and did you manage it, or how did you avoid it?
Good question. I think the typical documentary film has, 250 hours, 300, 400. I had 1,300 hours, and I didn't mic anyone. I just had a single camera. I had a shotgun mic, and I basically just hang out with them, and hang out with people in the community and live our lives together, And so there are performative elements of it, Daniel dancing at the beginning, or they're playing the hand slap game, and the guy that's getting destroyed is you didn't get me, we got it on camera. People know it's there, but because of the amount of time I spend with them and the way that I use the camera and a really small rig, I'm not interested in the Steadicam mechanical model of filming for this film. And the camera's small, it's a Mark III, and just being with people and having that be natural. I mean, I always had a camera, they've always known me to take photos. And so our relationship was, I guess, always fluid.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time for questions, but I wanted to say thank you for bringing us this kind of nonfiction work, but that's only half the story. If you appreciate this kind of work, then support it, go and see it, vote for it. This is in the US competition, and let's help get more of this kind of non-fiction, poetic, expressive, thoughtful storytelling out into the world.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes,
yeah,
of course,
there's actually
yes.
there's a bunch of filmmakers that are sort of working in this visuality as content, the film, the nonfiction genre as actual content, and the image as content. And they're part of this thing called the Art of Nonfiction initiative. And I'd say there's a couple who are, all of them are amazing, but if you look at this guy Theo's film, you look at Brett Story's film, you look at Kitty Green's film, all of them are shifting the perspective on documentary film and providing a whole new perspective on things that are very commonplace and assumed to be known. So yeah, I'm really happy to have come out of that camp.
Great. Thank you for watching.